Hi friends, welcome to Law Chat with Girija. This is your legal BFF, Girija Patel. Thank you for tuning in. I am so grateful for every single one of you for tuning in and listening, because this is what Law Chat is about. It's a place for you to be inspired, a place for you to gain some more wisdom and knowledge about your industry, but a place also where you can receive mentorship through storytelling. Thank you so much. Now, I know that before we walk into this next episode, whether you're tuning in through your iTunes or through other form of a podcast, or whether this is on YouTube, I would love for you to share this information with someone else, somebody who is your friend, your family, a colleague, somebody in your community, someone who can really be inspired by this as well and benefit from the information and from the stories that we're sharing with you today. Law Chat is to help the community, is to boost the community, is to inspire the community. And I want you to help me to do that. So thank you so much for that. Let's get started. Hi friends, welcome to Law Chat with Girija. Finding mentors or even a group of people that you can hang out with, share your industry tips with, or even just get some guidance and some mentorship with can be a tough task, especially for those introverts. And sometimes you just don't even know where to look. My guest today, Rebekah Albaugh, is the co-founder of the Reset Conference, a national conference that travels the US and occurs annually. And it's for photographers. It's a very well-known photography and photographer education in Illinois. She's one of the leaders of the Rising Tide. If you've heard of it, it's amazing. And she travels domestic and internationally for her photography shoots. She is a very well-known photographer also in the industry. Over the years, in her wedding work, she's been published in Style Me Pretty, I Do Magazine, Wedding Essentials Magazine, Behind Every Bride Magazine, Bouquet Catcher Magazine, Wedding Day Magazine, Modern Luxury, and various other publications. That's a whole lot of publications and a whole lot of industry recognition. And it truly goes to the fact that she is extremely talented, not in only her profession, her skill set, but also talented in bringing her world together and encouraging them and providing mentorship through Reset Conference. So welcome to Law Chat, Rebekah. I'm really excited to have you here today.
I'm so excited to be here. It's always fun to have like a chat with a new friend and then also get to share your heart. So thank you, Girija.
Yeah. One of the things that really stood out when I was kind of researching about you, and I know I talked about like how we like kind of know each other even before we meet, just because of the research that we might do behind the scenes. But one of the things that even on your website is the fact that, you're really about bringing the community together. You're about educating them and helping them live their best life as a professional by providing them support and guidance in their professional journey as well. And I think a lot of it is that you do it through the Reset Conference and the educators you bring into that space as well. But that really stood out because I know that you're a leader of the Rising Tide. And one of the mottos of Rising Tide is community over competition, which has been really, really healthy for, in general, the creative industry. And has this something been like the conference is something that you've been doing now? How long have you been doing the conference? But then how did you get into all of this photography and how did your journey start?
Yeah. Okay, so the conference is a byproduct of the photography, I would say, but the actual love of photography began as a connection point with my father when I was young. So he was many things, but he was a pilot and then he was a developer, a real estate developer. And one of his favorite hobbies was photography. I am the third of 4 children and the middle girl. So it goes girl, boy, girl, girl. So I'm that second to last girl. And, as most middle children will say, they kind of get lost in the scheme of things. They're usually very adaptable people, kind of the peacemakers. They don't like conflict and, a little bit quiet, maybe sometimes a little bit shy. And that was me as a child. And as a teenager, I remember trying to find good connection point with my dad. And he was very invested in all of us, but he could tell that I loved pictures. And I loved at that time scrapbooking and taking pictures with, the little throwaway cameras and things like that. And so he kind of poured into me in the photography aspect of things. At the time, there was no digital photography. It was all film and chemical development. So he passed on one of his better film cameras to me during a very isolated fly-in fishing trip that we did as a family in Canada. And there was really nothing for a 14-year-old girl to do after full days of fishing.
Yeah.
So I took my 12-year-old little sister, and he just, taught me some of the basic settings. And that was the launch. She was my model, and we did all the things in this little island we were on. And I fell in love with photography in that very moment. And I luckily went to a big Chicago suburban high school, and we had photography classes there. So I always had one as kind of one of my incentive classes. Mm-hmm. And then in college, also, it was a 5-year degree at the university I attended. So I decided to not pursue that as my degree, but I always had a photography course on my schedule every semester that I attended school. So my degree is technically in communications and expressive arts. A little backpedaling, my dad suddenly died of a cardiac arrest the fall of my senior year of high school. And so a lot of photographers, actually, when you hear their origin story, a lot of them have something to do with nostalgia or some kind of association with someone that they love or someone that they've lost or pointed them in that direction. So I hate to be the cookie cutter photographer, but that is probably, doing some self-seeking, self-searching. That's kind of where I landed in. How did I get here? How did this get started? And so yeah, I went to school. I married young and became a mother very, very young, right at the ripe age of 21. And I went into the corporate world. And as most young mothers do, I didn't want to stay there. I wanted to stay home with my baby. Yeah. So after my maternity leave, I went back to work, and I think I lasted 2 weeks before I just came home to my husband every day crying and saying, I don't want to leave him. And so my husband, I was a teacher at the time and a young high school football coach. And he said, okay, we'll find a way. We'll make it work. Go ahead and stay home with him. So teachers in Illinois teachers probably everywhere in the United States don't make what they deserve, know? Right. And so we lived very humbly. And at that time, we felt the pains of living on a single salary with a growing family. And I wanted to contribute, but I also didn't want to sacrifice being there with my child. So I kind of racked my brain, and I waitressed a little bit. Again, scheduling did not lend to the life I wanted to live as a mother. And then I found myself nannying. And luckily, I was allowed to bring my oldest Grant with me for a year to the 2 different nannying positions that I had. I had great employers that just allowed me to kind of parent my child along with theirs at the same time. And that worked out for about 1.5 years until Nate and I were expecting our second. And I was like, I can't justifiably bring 2 kids with me to these homes. I have to pour into my children. So now that I had 1.5 years of childcare under my belt, my husband encouraged me to kind of open our doors and get licensed to do at-home childcare in our home. So that would allow me to still be there with my kids, but also help contribute to the family's finances. And I did that. I became licensed in the state of Illinois to do at-home childcare. And I didn't pursue teaching. And I grew up in a household with a lot of pets and kids, but it was never like my calling. I think God makes people special and very, very unique to, the path that he puts them on. And that wasn't necessarily the path I think I should have been on. I was good with the children, but I did recognize my pain points. And so after a year of caring for 7 kids that included my 2, I knew that I needed a different plan. And so while watching those children, I was teaching them Spanish, and they had a lot of great structure. I was also taking a lot of photos of these children and handing them over as I was learning digital photography in 2007 to their parents. And it kind of snowballed. They loved these images. And then they would say, I love the pictures you take of my kids. Would you be willing? Could we hire you to come take pictures at our home, some family pictures? And I was so flattered. And I said, of course. And yeah, it just snowballed from there. And soon enough, I had too much going on that I decided to formulate an exit plan from the childcare industry and an entrance plan into the photography industry. So that was 2007, and it just kept happening in big ways from there. I was asked to shoot my first wedding in 2008. I declined. They begged me some more, and I quoted them what I thought was an astronomical price, but then again, still fair in case I screwed it up, more than I had ever made in any one photography gig. And it wasn't that much money between you and I. And so I begged my older sister to come with me. She had a comparable camera to me to just be a backup.
Yeah.
And we did that. And the maid of honor from that wedding asked me to shoot her wedding, and so on and so forth. So that was 2008. And I have been photographing weddings and events since then. Did not see myself doing that so long. But yeah, so I've run a successful photography business that focused primarily on weddings and events up until 2020, when I opened the doors back up to everything and haven't shut them again. The origin of the Reset Conference, I had been teaching beginners photography courses here in Champaign to mostly women, but women and men who wanted to learn how to utilize the expensive camera that they had. A lot of people had expensive SLRs and DSLRs that they had like lenses that could be interchangeable, and these cameras that make them look like they know what they're doing, but they have no idea what they were doing. Yeah. So basically courses that taught them how to shoot manual and how to shoot more like a professional and utilize their equipment to the best of its capability, or at least better than what they were doing, getting their investment to pay out a little better. And I loved it. I loved teaching and sharing, and that kind of expanded into teaching on the next level as well. So teaching newer photographers than myself more about light and composition and coaching and all that is involved with portrait photography. And they just kept growing. And so the idea of the Reset Conference, which is now a national level traveling photography conference, was kind of birthed from wanting to do more within the photography industry, or even an extension of that, the creative entrepreneur industry, because I do believe that the Reset Conference can serve more than just photographers, because nowadays, you're a lawyer, Girija, everyone needs visual media to thrive. Yeah, like literally.
Yeah, if you're not on that bandwagon, you're already like literally a decade behind. And
So this event, I can expand on it if you'd like, but it definitely caters to the creative entrepreneurial community, or even people in business who need visual marketing, which, like I said, I feel is everybody at this point, and teaches them and gives them the tools and the resources that they need to basically, if I'm going to put it more in layman's terms, we're there to build a community that is otherwise like a lonely industry, but a byproduct of that is we are also giving people the tools to open up their schedules a little bit more. And when you open up your schedule, you have more time to live your best life, right? So if we can give them the tools and resources to do things better, faster, more efficient, then they have more time to invest in their family or their dreams or expand their business, and also just a better mental health, all of it. So time is really I heard Jenna Kutcher say this once, and it resonated with me so much. Time is the new currency, right? Or it always has been, and we've never been able to identify that. So time is the most valuable currency, and we want more of it to live our best life. So how do we get there? And so that's what Reset is there for, aside from building community and networking and relationships with people, is to help you find more time and to do things better.
I hate to interrupt this awesome conversation, but I have to stop and talk with you about the number one thing I'm asked about by entrepreneurs: contracts. They're vital to any business relationship and to protect your business. But I also know that entrepreneurs, especially when you're starting up, money is tight. But I would never want you to compromise on a strong legal foundation. So
enter yourcontractbuddy.com, a website created by me with contract templates created and drafted by me and fellow industry partners. They're ready to use and easy to plug in immediately, and they are not restricted to any specific state. So yourcontractbuddy.com is sponsoring this episode, and you and your listener can get 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. Yes, you heard me right. 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. And now back to our awesome conversation.
Gosh, so much has been shared just now. So I'm going to rewind a little bit. And I love what you said about time, that you just re-quoted Jenna Kutcher. And it's so true. I think time is so scarce, especially in our packed schedules as parents or even as non-parents. There's just a lot going on in our lives. And with the virtual connections, it's really hard to disconnect also, and to create a space where you can just do nothing, or create a space where you're doing something for yourself, whether it's education or, self-care and other ways that brings relaxation and peace of mind. But a couple of things though. One, I didn't realize photography was a 5-year course. Like that's I didn't even realize. It's like nursing. I've heard it's 5 years. Journalism can be 5 years also.
It should be 4 years. I'm sure at most art schools that specialize, it's 4. But the school, I went to Valparaiso University in Northwest Indiana, and it's a liberal arts school. And they used to have a great law school too. And so they just didn't have the staff to facilitate a 4-year degree. Yeah. So that was more the circumstance.
But you're like, I can't do the 5-year degree, but I'll still take classes and really work on your skills. And, I like that, because whether you realize it or not, but you were balancing as you're getting your degree, pursuing your degree, but you're also balancing it with something that really brings joy to you, which is photography. And it connects you back to your dad also. And like how you were saying, nostalgia. And it's just this deeper connection that you have. And so you kept it relevant in your life. And funny enough, the relevancy just continued. A lot of times we as humans don't necessarily realize how we keep something relevant, but there's a purpose behind that. And then you pursued it even through the journey of, having your children, and then opening up your home to childcare. But then those skill sets you've learned, you've taken all of that and you've applied it to where you are today. But I also believe that if it wasn't for that, you may not even have gotten into photography. So this was just like those stones, like the little stepping stones that you needed to allow yourself to see that, oh, maybe photography is where I really need to be. And, really indulging yourself in a way that was so organic. But at the same time, you allowed yourself to move into that space, like you were fluid about it.
Mm-hmm. I didn't see it while it was happening, what I mean? And so for the young person who's kind of feeling like, oh, I have this college degree and this debt that and you hear so much about people who aren't using the skill set that they invested so much into, and they're just very disheartened. But you never know, you don't realize how you're learning or who you're learning from, or like you said, the steps that kind of lead you to the path that you're supposed to be on. And hindsight is the clearest, right? The clearest kind of sight. So now I see I had to walk through, those steps. And like you said, that pattern, had I not done childcare, it was the people who spoke into what I was doing well and believed in me and asked me to provide a service that kind of planted that seed in my brain. Like, well, I don't have a degree in photography, but maybe I could still do it, And nowadays, fast forward to 2022, everyone knows that you do not need a degree to be a photographer. In fact, we used to joke many years ago when we were all feeling threatened by the thriving, super saturated photography industry. And we would read or write in our snarky little groups, there's so many photographers out there, and FAUX. And so photographers, and they don't have degrees. And then I would just sit there quietly okay, I have all this experience doing this, but I can't contribute to this conversation because I don't have a photography degree. And, I don't, but yet I'm doing this and I'm doing it well. And I'm quickly became the breadwinner in my family, very early on, the primary breadwinner, I should say. And so Yeah, you don't need to. And I'd say actually that's true of a lot of, college is a different thing now. And I mean, you have to go to college to become a lawyer. You have to pass the bar. But, but there are other things that there's so many entrepreneurs out there like thriving. And I think basic application and putting yourself like just out there, there are a lot of things you can do, especially in this country, that, there's an alternate path to get to.
Yeah. Gosh, you have absolutely nailed it, because I think even if you've been in a certain path, like how you were saying earlier, and you've had training and education, you've poured tons of money into it, also graduated with that degree, I really want people to know that it's okay if you're not pursuing that specific route that is being told to be taken by the school or by, the industry standards, because that route, you might be the person who is actually paving a whole new route or a whole another type of movement within that industry. And it just takes that one or two people to get that idea out there. Like, I mean, social media and all this stuff, like, what was that? But now it's a thing. And it's a thing where people are making tons of money as marketing. And they've created a whole nother industry all of a sudden. And even professionals who are in social media, they've become influencers as well in their own right. While their day job might be something else, but they're professionals in influence marketing. And I truly believe that all the different experiences that we have are actually helping us and leading us to the next chapter of our lives, the next thing that we are doing. And, we can sit down and be upset about it, or we can just say, you know what, take an inventory of where you are today and see all the things that you did in the past and how they're working and playing into the cards today.
Absolutely. And it makes me think, okay, like where I'm at, I'm kind of in the middle of my life now. Like, it makes me excited and very curious as to like where I will be in 10 years, where will I be in 15 years? What does that look like? Because sometimes it's good to sit and pause and think, could I have seen this 10 years ago? I often actually play that mind game where like you think back, and I journal a lot too, but you look at your journal and you're like, oh, if only I could have flipped ahead 20 pages and I wouldn't have worried or put so much negative energy into this over here, because now I can see how it played out just the way it should have, yeah. It's all out of our hands, but I think trust is a good thing.
It's really true. But if we become more cognizant about it and kind of like press the reset button on it and take it in, like, just take an inventory and just see, like, contemplate and just look in the past and think about it. Just take a moment. You'll realize that if you are feeling down, that there's been amazing things that have happened in your life also. And you're still standing and your mind is ready to move to the next level. You just need to let your like legs follow.
Absolutely.
Oh gosh, I love that. I love your story though, because it truly exemplifies a lot of that, just finding what is the most valuable to you. The non-negotiables was your family. The non-negotiables was being with your children. And that was for me too, honestly. Like when I became a mom, I was like, I want to spend time with my kids and I want to create a life where I can do that and not feel guilty, not feel like stretched for time, where time becomes the most valuable asset in my life, and be present. And it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. It definitely was a very intentional actions and intentional mindsets.
And it's funny, Girija, that you say that, because I kind of grazed over the fact that the Reset Conference was founded, but there was a moment where I found myself at that point where I had that same priority, that same non-negotiable. And with portrait photography, I found myself kind of at a burnout point where our demand exceeded supply. And in my relationships in my home life were definitely strained because I was working far more than I was investing in my family. But, you tell yourself the story, like, I'm working for my family. So you got to kind of, it's like, it becomes a gray area. Like being present means we have less financially, but, making more means that I'm missing out, and I'm not present. So the Reset Conference was actually birthed, and I asked a friend and a peer to join me in the planning process. So I am a co-founder. she was going through an adoption process with her third child at the time when I first asked her, and she put me on hold, and I waited probably for about a year to 2 years, and then she was ready. And
Wow.
what we wanted to speak into was like that work-life balance, or the reset mantra is more like capture life, live it first. So it's our job to like tell everyone's story, but at the same time, don't forget to live out your own story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was at that pivotal point again in my life where it was like, okay, it's a non-negotiable. I need to choose my family. I need to close the doors to some of this or expand. And I didn't really know how to expand at the time. So instead, what I did was I closed the doors to multiple genres of photography. I no longer shot families or children or babies or maternity. I exclusively photographed weddings and boudoir photography for those brides. And then I also launched a senior photography brand under a different name and hired an associate photographer and trained her to be the senior photographer.
Mm.
And so, so I kind of reworked that. And while at that same time, launched the Reset Conference to speak into people's lives who were going through something similar. There was a lot of burnout in the industry. That was the conversation that was being had, and just a lot of negativity, I think. And we have a front row seat in all of our different various industries to see like what people are going through, unlike any other time in history. And people are definitely transparent on their pain points as well as their strengths. But I think the pain points are where more conversations thrive, because people like feeling like they're not alone, and trying to navigate problems and see how others before them have gotten through. And so that is kind of, I was at a burnout point. I recognized the problem in my life. I wanted more time with my family. I didn't want to be gone every single moment of the week while my husband was, having to go to every game and do all the things. So Reset was kind of like born from that pain point and that decision. Yeah.
Wow. And it's funny because it wasn't a small decision. I mean, it's a conference and it's a big conference, and to put all of that together, but at the same time, shed the things that were not as important because you just didn't have time for it. And so when you were deciding to take those other, services off the menu, did you do like a financial analysis on it also? Or was it just something like, I'm not feeling this anymore, so I'm not going to do this one?
Very loosely. I was on my way to a large photography conference in Atlanta with a group of other photographers, and I had never heard of cost of sales, what your COS was. And I had a friend who had broken down her cost of sales. And so on the 12-hour car ride down, we kind of broke down my cost of sales based on the different genres that I was photographing, because I did have different pricing menus for those things. And I discovered that I was making 3 to 4 times as much per hour for my investment in time and overhead and like cost of goods with weddings and events than I was with the other genres. So it was very clear to me, that if I wanted to, thrive, this was the genre that I should pursue harder or more exclusively. And so I did.
Wow. It's just, sometimes we forget that money tells a story and the financials of the company tells a story. And I like how, you actually looked at your cost of sales before you let go of a certain service or offering that you had, because that also reaffirmed and justified the decision where you're like, I can still make money and make more money doing more of this than splitting it between something that's maybe making 1 times more compared to something that's making 3 times more.
Yep. So it was clear. And now I do it all again. And that
what brought that decision about?
So 2020 happened, right? Like the whole world shut down. And I had, at that time I was just boudoir and weddings, like an event photographer. So when events were canceled, it was kind of scary for a lot of, a lot in the industry. I work very close with the hotel industry as well through the Reset conference, but like everyone was being furloughed or let go, or things were being postponed. And I had a plan and I executed it in order to still not just survive, but I did pretty well. I thrived in 2020 with a different plan, and I could touch on that if you'd like to know. But I did have more than half of my weddings cancel or kind of change their plan. So at that time, I decided, when we were allowed to take photos within our state at a distance, luckily photographers don't have to touch anybody, and we can be at a distance. When we were allowed to do that, all I had to offer was, little groups. So families, and people were still pregnant and they wanted pictures documenting that. And people still had just had babies. And it was like, oh, I'm not going to have a nice portrait of my firstborn child, so those things were still happening. I know a lot of newborn photographers got really, really inventive in 2020. Newborn is the antithesis of wedding photography as far and like it's very controlled, very pre-planned, very hot, very stagnant in the same place, but there's a lot of planning. So the A-type person thrives in newborn photography. It is not my bread and butter. It's not my jam. Weddings, like, you can't really develop a plan because lighting and weather and everybody's wedding looks differently on the day of. And it's a lot of like spontaneous decision making, like right on the spot. And I thrive with doing that. Mm-hmm. So but I did, and I still am photographing the babies of my past brides and more lifestyle rather than, directed. But I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, and a lot of photographers I know are. And also my love language is words of affirmation. Mm. So the 2 is the helper. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Enneagram, but we love building others up. And so with words of affirmation and being a yes girl to all the things, because I don't know how to say no, my needs are being met with the words of affirmation in my industry, but I also don't know how to say no, even when it's unhealthy. So I open those doors and I have yet to close them, even though events are coming back full throttle. I had 42 weddings last year, and it was just too much. But
42 weddings last year. Was that because all of 2020 got postponed to 2021 also, or is that normal?
A chunk, yes, but I think it was actually fear mentality that was driving the newly engaged couples to book, because you probably know, like, anything that you want to do is in short supply right now, like building a home or, getting a contractor to show up. Like, everything is in demand. We have a depleted workforce in the United States after the pandemic. And so, yes, like, there is an overflow from everyone who didn't get to do things in 2020. It kind of rolled into 2021 and 2022. But I think people also spent a lot of time together, and they had kind of a reality check, and they could tell where their priorities were. They either learned that they were compatible with somebody or they weren't. They could picture the rest of their lives with them. So when it comes to weddings specifically, there was probably a surge of engagements that happened in 2020. People learned a lot about each other in a very difficult situation. And a lot of people fell in love, and I know that the time that my family was forced to have together and slow down. Now, my teenage daughter, she said, I loved the pandemic.
Yeah.
She said, I have so many unique memories of us in our home, like doing puzzles, watching movies, taking walks, making tortillas. My husband's Mexican, like, from scratch. Like, it was really, really beautiful to be forced to slow down. And so, so I think, there's a lot of facets to why we're so overwhelmed right now, but it's not a bad thing, Learning how to say no is a lesson that everyone needs to learn. So I did, for 2022, close the doors earlier than 42 weddings. I'm shooting 24 myself, and my team, my associates, are shooting 7. So, we have 31, but that's far less than 42.
Yeah, that is, but that's a lot. And that's amazing. It's like, No, it's so true. So we had a similar experience. It was really peaceful. We got to slow down. We didn't have to do all the extra stuff that, we do. And then I don't want to call it the rat race, but just the running around, the constant running around also wasn't there. So it was a blessing also for us, parts and parcel of this 2020 COVID. So it was good. So now that, your Reset conference, you had one last year in Waco, which I just have to say, love Waco, love everything about Waco also. And now you have another one coming up next year, right? In spring of next year?
Yes. Yeah. So we had our fall conference in September of 2021 in Waco. And then we went back, we planned our 2022 conference very quickly in 5 months to get back to our spring slot. And we were in Lexington, Kentucky very recently in March. And we're back in our March, April slot, which we love. And we will be in Chattanooga, Tennessee in 2023. And we're super excited. We've never hosted anything in Chattanooga. It's a very, very scenic city. And it has a lot to lend for like culture, but also like that rural landscape is just beautiful. So one of the aspects of our event is an optional day 3 where the photographers can opt to shoot styled shoots with the educators and learn from them. And these are like, for someone who's not a photographer, just imagine like a magazine shoot where all of the items and the vendors from the city have come in, and hair and makeup and flowers and wardrobe and models. And so they get the opportunity to photograph various aspects of the region we're in, whether it be an urban setting, like in a distillery or up on the mountains by the waterfalls. They have the opportunity to photograph that city. And our attendees love it because 9 times out of 10, our event is in a place that they don't have, a client base in. So they can shoot a different kind of scene or landscape or culture and have that in their portfolio. So it's super fun. Yeah. And that's why we love hopping around the United States.
Yeah, that's exciting. And what a great opportunity also for the attendees, for the photographers that are there. And, before we wrap it up, is there anything like a parting advice or a tip, something that has just been so important to you throughout the time that you've been, a business owner?
Yeah. It might not be as businessy as anything, but I think, going back to like the whole rising tide mentality, community over competition, my very best friends, my greatest relationships in my field have been formed by powerful and strong positive networking opportunities. And I've extended off of those and made the deepest friendships that I've ever had. I'm turning 40 in a couple weeks. I have a group text thread that I started last night and realized everyone in this text thread that I consider my close girlfriends, and there's 17 or 18 of them, and I'm trying to arrange dinner for my 40th birthday, are all in the event industry on a different capacity, from planners to photographers to filmmakers to florists to hair and makeup artists. They're all in there, and they are my dearest friends. And I think that something unique about our community here in Champaign is that we literally all love each other. And I think that there is so much more to be said for, that love and encouragement mentality and practice in your life. And it will pour over tenfold in not just in business and helping you to succeed and getting referrals and whatnot, but just in your life experience, in your story. Like, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have these friends if I hadn't been open-minded to, to sharing and helping and being helped and spoken into. So I think my best business advice would be, if you are, willing to find people in your industry who are like-minded, who might have a similar experience, and take them out for coffee or lunch, or even meet over a Zoom, and you don't even have to leave your house, and just kind of allow yourself to learn from and pour into that person. There is nothing but good that can come from that, and in business and in life. And I think that that's probably common sense, but I think more people need to speak into that, because I think having a competitive nature can be good when it comes to the dollar, like the end of the day, but there's so much more than the dollar, like it's not the most valuable currency in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's such good advice. Such good advice. And I know sometimes it can be tough to do it. It could be just a personality thing. It could also be just a procrastination thing. So I would encourage, the people who are listening, if there is this one person that you've been wanting to connect with, send them an email, tell them why you want to connect with them, and then just let that be your stepping stone.
Exactly. And if anything, worst case scenario, you flattered someone that day by letting them know they were seen and that they're interesting to you. And, like if they don't want to meet up, move on to the next one. There's always someone else.
Exactly. So. The rejection can be hard, but you have nothing to lose. So
Yep.
Exactly. Oh, I love that. Really, really good advice. So now something I always ask my guests is that what is the one thing that anchors you in life when things are just going a little haywire? What holds you steady?
Well, I am a woman of Christian faith. So for me, my spiritual health is what anchors me. So most days I start my morning. I didn't today, and I have that guilt. But most days I start my morning after my kids get off to school in a form of Christian meditation and prayer, or I have a Bible app that I listen to Bible stories on, or like I said, journaling. Like I have a journal that mostly it's like a journal to God for me. Like I write down requests of people, clients, friends, people on social media that I know have a need, and I write them down and I just kind of sit with that and like hand it over to God. And then I also write down praises. So it's almost like a gratitude journal too. And seeing like what's going well for those that I've either prayed for or for myself or for my family or my friends. And I get to kind of flip through that. And so practice of daily gratitude, whether you're a spiritual person or a person of faith or not, is such a healthy way to pursue life. I do attribute that to my Savior, but for people who aren't, people of faith, I think you can still do that on some capacity. And it's so good for your mental health. I think that professionals all over the world will tell you that practicing Thanksgiving and gratitude on a daily basis will just get you in a very healthy mindset. So that helps me stay anchored. It also helps me recognize what I've been given and how far I've come and what I have. And I just consider myself so, so blessed, like trying to focus on all that I have versus what I don't. And there's so many in need, like all over the world. And so also being able to give back and pay it forward and use what I've been given, because I don't think I've been given it just so I can live a happy life or be happy. I think that's the byproduct, but it's missing the point. You're given all that you're given, whether it be material things or relationships or positive experiences or accolades, all of those things, so you can pour into others. Yeah. And I think serving others is kind of one of the bigger meanings of life, and the secret to happiness is serving and loving others. So yeah, so for me, my faith and my family keep me anchored, but also, those are my practices.
I like that you shared your practices also. I truly believe in the power of journaling, and gratitude is everything. In the mornings, my husband and I, doesn't matter who's dropping the kiddos off at school, we go through the whole thank you God routine where we go through the different things that we're thankful for and the things that could be on our hearts or on our mind that are weighing us down, even being thankful that you're guiding us through that and getting us through it. And it's really nice because these tools I can give to my children, and then now we're sharing it so our listeners can hear it too. And these tools can really help you get through muddy waters. Like they've helped me. They are, whatever you want to call them, but there are definitely things that help me get out of mindsets that can be debilitating.
People I think last year alone between 2020 and now it kind of it's all 1 year, right? At this point.
I keep forgetting we're in 2022, by the way. Like I'm always like, wait, what year are we?
I think I counted 4 to 5 couples that were struggling to conceive, that I had photographed their weddings and I had intentionally journaled about them and prayed about them. And all of them now, whether it be through IVF or through natural means and struggle have been blessed with their first child.
Mm-hmm.
And so flipping back and looking at that, like that heartache and that, just praying for them so earnestly, and then seeing and then I also have I get the opportunity to like take a picture of that journal and text it to them and say, look at where you were and look at where you are now. And if someone could show you, like, you're in my praise category now and not my request category. And I've had that. And then people feel loved, like they feel loved. They had no idea that they were on my mind, and in my prayers. And then, it means a lot to love and serve others and to recognize that you have been loved and served. So, yeah.
My gosh, Rebekah, you have, since the beginning, even your email to me, replying back to my request for you to be on my podcast also, and just talking to you today, it's definitely, you exude a servant's heart. And that is, it's really nice. It's really nice to have this conversation with you also. And
you're gonna make me cry.
No, but it's true. I'm not just saying that. I truly believe it. Like, talking to you and just having, just going back and forth about this it's been nice. So not everybody is open to share it also. So it's nice to have this open conversation about it. And, everybody has a different way of going through the rough patches. But if, we can share with each other, not just us, but everybody, if we can just share with each other what we lean into and what holds us strong in those rough patches, then why not? And I love that you are not only putting your needs out there, but you're also thinking about others when you are just in your silent time and doing what you need to do and having that conversations with God. So it's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. Well, thank you for speaking into me, and it's been so fun, like getting to talk to you and getting to know you and to, like I said, somebody wants to hear what I have to say. That's like awesome. So thank you for asking.
I know. Well, I'm sure there's others that want to connect with you or they want to get to the Reset Conference. So how can they connect with you and where can they find you on social media?
Yeah. So like I said, I do too many things, but I do have 3 to 4 Instagram accounts. My personal one, I just, that's my personal one, but you can connect with me if you find me through this podcast on Instagram is probably my most visited platform. And that's my name, Rebekah.Albaugh.photographer. Or if you're interested in my seniors or my branding headshot area of expertise, I guess you could say, that's Rebekah Albaugh Seniors. And then the Reset Conference is on Instagram as well under the Reset Conference with no dots. You can also check out the upcoming Reset Conference on our website, www.theresetconference.com.
Awesome. Well, all of this will be in the show notes as well. You can go back and look at the show notes and connect with Rebekah. Rebekah, thank you again. It was so lovely chatting with you and spending my morning with you.
Same. Thanks, girl. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Law Chat. I hope this was super beneficial to you. I really enjoyed sharing this information with you today. And I have to ask you for a favor. Like I did in the beginning, I'm going to ask you again, please share this with your community, whether it's a friend, family, or another colleague, or someone else on your Facebook or Instagram or other social media spot. Share this, subscribe, and stay tuned for other episodes coming in so you are always up to date. But then also take another moment and share this episode with your community, because when you share it with everybody else, not only are they benefiting, but also the information that I'm sharing is reaching out to more people, because at the end of the day, we want to rise together with our community, and I can only do that with your help. Now, I am so grateful for you. I'm so grateful that you tuned in, and I want to hear from you as well. So shoot me a DM on Instagram at GVP Law or at Law Chat with Girija. I would love to hear from you. I would love to also hear what other episodes that you would like to hear about, topics that you want to hear about, and also just connect with you. And thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, cheers.